What if the story you've been telling yourself isn't the full truth? What if writing it down could change everything? Today, we're talking about how storytelling can help you reclaim lost parts of yourself and create a more fulfilling next chapter. Welcome back to the Wild and Wise show, where we get real about midlife, the changes, the challenges, and the possibilities. If you're new here, I'm Yvonne Winkler, a life and menopause coach, speaker, and founder of the Wild Woman Collective. If what we talk about here today on this show resonates with you, please check my website, subscribe to this podcast, or join the Wild Woman Collective for deeper conversations and exclusive content. I'll put the links in the show notes below. Today's guest is someone who knows a thing or two about the stories we tell ourselves. Her name is Amanda Johnson, known as the Story Oracle. She helps people uncover and rewrite their personal narratives through writing and storytelling. Her work is all about helping people reconnect with themselves and their purpose through the power of words. So, we'll be talking about how writing can help uncover the unspoken, reclaim lost parts of yourself, and rewrite the stories you've outgrown. If you've ever felt stuck in an old narrative, this show is for you. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Oh, I love talking about all of this story stuff. Thanks for the opportunity.
I would imagine you do as the Story Oracle.
Yeah.
Tell us, how did you come to that? What led you to this work?
I came by that name pretty honestly. Speaking of good stories, do you remember The Matrix?
Hmm.
Okay, so do you remember the Oracle in The Matrix? She was
Yes.
the one that
Yes.
he went to and said, "Am I the one?" And she handed him a cookie and said, "I don't know, are you?"
Yes.
Well, I realized all of those years ago that the questions were far more powerful than answers. From the time I was in high school and I had powerful storytelling teachers, and then in college in the classic books program, I had a professor who said, "If you walk out of here with more answers than questions, we've failed you." And I thought, well, that's a completely different way of looking at life than how I was
Mm-hmm.
raised. I like it though, because it's
Mm-hmm.
always that next chapter, the growth. What else is there? What if what I believe right now isn't true? And how would it change if I found a little bit more truth? So that's how I raised my son. I wanted him to be a free thinker and a big feeler and have the opportunity to have all that agency. And then as I became an editor, lots of questions, trying to understand people's intention, and a facilitator, always leading with questions. And then as a writing partner, that became the very important thing because I am very intuitive. And when people come to me and say, "I have this idea," it's almost like I can see a potential vision for them. But just because I can see something doesn't mean that that's what they're supposed to step into. So questions are more powerful than answers.
Ooh, love that. Great takeaway. I hope you are all writing that one down. You say that you've worked with many people in their midlife, so 40s and 50s, who've used writing to transform their lives. What is it about this stage, you think, that makes storytelling so powerful?
I think that there's a big transition that happens. And I actually wonder, I need to talk to a scientist about this, I think, but I kind of wonder if there's when the biological creation season concludes or gets near that time,
Mhm.
we're still built for creating. We're still built for nurturing and raising. And so, usually by the time we're in midlife, we've collected a lot of insights and lessons and medicine, let's say, that we look up one day and think, I, why don't, if only the next generation knew this earlier. Some of us are in companies where we're professionals who are the ones who've been there for 10, 20 years, really successful out the gate, wondering why this generation can't get its stuff together. And so we're constantly offering these ideas and insights. And one of the things that I hear often is, I think it's time for me to think in terms of being the mentor and thinking about my legacy more than it is about building my own thing anymore. It's about like I've arrived at some place, and
Mhm.
now it's time to figure out how to take what I've acquired back to the people who need it.
Yes, yes, yes. There definitely feels to be that sense of mentorship in midlife, and I've been talking lots with other people about this, especially when you mentioned corporate, where there is so much knowledge and skill that seems to be embedded, and yet very few opportunities to transcend that information or that experience or that knowledge to the new people that are coming on board. So I can see how storytelling would be a fantastic way for some. Others may be a little bit more strategic and wanting to just do the lecturing. But let's focus on storytelling because
Yeah,
that's your jam right
yeah,
here. So
absolutely.
um, I love that. Yeah. So I think you're right. There's a lot to be said about this stage and age and the experiences that we have and the feeling around. "Hmm, I want to share that. I want to share that out into the world." You say that writing helps us uncover the unspoken. What do you mean by that?
Well, most individuals find me and they're looking to put something very specific on paper, right? I have this message that I want to take to the world. And my first question is always like, why do you care about this message? And several people actually go sheet white because they realize that I'm asking about the story, right? I'm asking about a story that usually has some hard stuff in it that they
Mm-hmm.
weren't really imagining bringing into this
Mm-hmm.
process at all. And yet it is the thing that connects with the readers and the audiences. When we're sharing our message, it's very hard to get anything to really stick if you can't connect. And storytelling is the absolute fastest way to connect with another human. And so the writing process gave people the opportunity to really look back through their story. Before we started recording, you shared a little bit about your own experience in this. As you're writing, like I'm finding stories I had completely forgotten
Mm-hmm.
because we have this thing called negativity bias, right? And we look back at our story and sometimes we just see all of the hard stuff. Or if we're really focused on success and achievement and we're taking that to the world and feeling very, let's say, Tony Robbins about it, Brene Brown, we're really excited about this. And so we only look back and see that stuff. But it's not the whole story because we are a really interesting species with a whole lot of magic and mess and grit and grace and that's the thing that connects us with people. So as I ask people to put pen to paper or fingertips to keyboard and really start looking at not just the story that you think you're here to tell, but what were the stories that happened in between, they start to see a really it's such a more beautiful picture of their story because if they've been focused on the hard stuff, they get to see moments of grace in between where this was a disaster, but then oh my gosh, between this and this disaster, there was this book that fell off a bookshelf at a bookstore and completely gave me hope that I could keep going. Or this person connected me with this person and that took me to an event, right? Can change my life. And so you start to see this more, um, this fuller, richer story. And I think that the process of writing helps you to expose that and also to um, reconnect with it and appreciate it more. Like, really, I can't even tell you how many times I've had someone who, when they were telling me their story verbally, I was like, oh my God, you are an amazing human. How did you survive that? And in their minds, they don't see themselves that way. But
Yeah.
you bet after they've written their book, they're like, holy moly, look at what I survived. And not
Yeah.
just survived, but actually got to a point where I feel ready to turn around and help other people.
Yes. Yes, to all of it. I can resonate with all of that so much because that vulnerability that we show in that storytelling, and really having someone like you encouraging us to dig a little deeper, and not just the polished self, not just the stuff that we think we need to show up as, but like to really share the raw and authentic is really where it's at for our own healing. And also, like you said, what connects us, what other people connect to us for. I've definitely shown up in the world thinking I had to show up polished and all put together, and everything needed to be a certain way, and um, wondering why no one can connect with me. And that was precisely the reason. Was it wasn't until after I written down my story that I realized, wow, there's a lot of strength in vulnerability and a lot of healing that goes with it, because now those stories no longer have a hold on me. They had some air to breathe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the actual writing process, I mean, if you think about all of what they're finding in neuroscience and all of that work right now, is how our body holds on to trauma and sticks and stuffs things away out of sight, right?
Right.
And yet it's still there and it's still driving our narratives forward. And so putting pen to paper and doing a physical act
Hmm.
beyond just the spoken word, but actually getting there and letting all of that discharge out of your body, it is absolutely incredible. And I've seen a lot of individuals heal massive, I
Hmm.
mean, just years and years of grief that was stored in their
Yeah.
system, you know. Um,
Yeah.
just I mean, I have tons of stories. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I imagine if you've been helping many, and not just the writing process, but taking them through the whole journey, which is remarkable, because that in and of itself, I recall it being very much of a roller coaster. There's a lot of ups and downs, and there's many points where it was really helpful to have someone holding my hand through the whole thing. So let's dive into that a little deeper, Amanda. And I imagine many people feel that their stories may not be big enough or worth telling. You said that some people just don't think that their story is actually that big, and you're like, "My God, how did you survive this?" So how do you get them to get past that block?
Through the writing. It
Yeah.
really is through the writing. And also, I think being in community is really important. We have a retreat model, one because we learned that our busy professionals don't get things done on their own time. They need to be kidnapped with consent to get anything done that's like this big of an endeavor.
Yeah.
And then when they're in community with each other, we realize the importance of helping them to understand the power of their story first by sharing and listening to the feedback. Because, why don't we share our stories? Well, usually because when we were sharing our stories with their big feelings when we were young, we were shamed or we were shushed or people didn't care or it didn't matter. And so we have all of those stories going on when we're thinking about putting our own message and story into the world. And so
Mhm.
the opportunity to sit in circle with a dozen other humans or more and say, you know, this thing is the thing that I don't want to put in my book. I really, this is the part that I'm trying to sort out. And to have a whole room full of people say, that gave me freedom just by you sharing it here. Imagine what it will unlock for a lonely human in the world who's turning to a book for an answer. It starts to build that
Wow.
internal
Yeah.
safety
Mhm.
inside of the author so that they can take that into the writing and then that into the publishing and then the visibility and all the other fun stuff on the other side.
Yes, yeah. Oh, wow, that is so true. I remember my first writing piece that I shared. I was shaking, like I
Mhm.
was physically shaking. I had to sit down. I couldn't stand up sharing it. It was so vulnerable. It felt so vulnerable. And it was a safe space that I shared it in. That feedback of being heard and witnessed in it all was what encouraged me to continue to write, and say, yeah, you have something here that is worth sharing.
Yeah, and then you have people who, everyone in the room latches on to a different part of your story, or
Yeah.
while you're sitting over lunch and diving a little deeper, whatever happens, so then you get a little bit further down the path, you get some momentum and some excitement, then you slam into another story wall and you're like, never mind, I don't think this is a good idea. And you have all of those people to say, actually, remember the time, and to hand pieces of your story back to you
Yeah.
so that you can see and own them again and keep
Yeah.
going. There's I
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody does it alone, honestly.
Yeah, it is a bit of a mystery to me as well, and yet there are a few that do. I guess it would depend too on what type of book you're writing. That witnessing piece, Amanda, let's go back to that
Yeah.
because you say that it is an essential piece of owning your whole story. So, why is being seen in our stories so important?
I think it gives us the opportunity to create what the neuroscientists are calling a disconfirming experience. So, we because we had those experiences when we were younger. I want to share my story. I'm excited about this thing. Oh, I'm not excited. Whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
we have this internal prediction every single time we go to share that this is going to be the response. Now, if that's what we're expecting and people can feel our energy, and we've collected people that fill all of the beautiful roles in that story so well, then of course we keep reiterating that story over and over again. So when you have the opportunity to break out of the story frame and put yourself into a space with other humans who
Yeah.
are all focused on something similar, it immediately changes the story, right? And then you get the opportunity to say the thing out loud, and there's all of your body is bracing, right? Or shaking, like you were saying. You're having this very visceral experience because you are expecting the story to go the way it has always gone.
Hmm.
And when it doesn't, it heals you. It breaks
Hmm.
that neural pathway loop that has been there for, shoot, I've seen people, in their 60s who were like, this started when I was 3. Yeah, it opens up a new portal of
Hmm.
possibility for them to create a new story, because if they're not sharing their stories in these places, what are the chances that they're sharing stories like you said, right? The persona, the way that I have to show up at work, in my family, it's like there's so many different roles to play. And
Hmm.
then if we get dysregulated, then how do we keep all of those roles straight? And then we have to hide because we can't let everyone see, right? That all of those little imperfections exist. It's
Yeah.
it's a very powerful thing to be in a safe space and to be able to say things that, I mean, I've had individuals literally blurt it out and then say, I have never said that to another human. Like, yeah, I know,
Yeah,
because I've been
I
in rooms
believe it.
like this too.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it. It's that safety feeling, and you know it when you know it, and then is encouraged. I love that you are taking this retreat approach,
Mhm.
because it is hearing, like, you might not be the first to speak up, and with having everyone else share a part or a piece, it encourages us to go a little bit further, dip that toe into the water and go for it. Yeah. So, for someone new to this practice, then, Amanda, what's a simple way to start using writing for self reflection?
I'll share with you a little bit. When I did this work with people who wanted to write books to become speakers, coaches, fill in the blank. And then I started to get all of their friends coming to my events saying, I don't want to be a speaker, coach, or even publish a book, but I
Yeah.
want what they got. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Can I do that without writing the whole book? And so I developed this framework, or I shouldn't say developed. I saw this framework,
Hmm.
distilled what was happening, because what was happening was I would ask someone to go back and be the character in their story again. And so this would be the first exercise, to go back and choose a scene. And I'm definitely not encouraging anybody to go back to the hardest scene that you can think of. No, don't start with that one.
No.
Go
Yeah.
back to a beautiful scene and go back and write it as the character inside the story. Don't just tell yourself about it. Don't just tell another person, but be in the story again. Ask yourself, what was I seeing and feeling? What was the what were the thoughts going on between my ears? What was the feeling in my chest? What was the setting that I was in? Who were the characters that were there? What were the dialogues that were going on, the conversations? And get as much information as you can. And you might surprise yourself with how much more information you see than you thought you remembered. And have that opportunity to reconnect with the character. And then if you feel like, oh, this is beautiful, then choose maybe one of those stories that wouldn't be the first one that you would share with people, and go
Mhm.
back and look at that too, and start to look for all of those sensory details, the external setting, the internal, and really get reconnected and ask yourself, where are there still little prickly places? Where do I still feel myself tense up when I think
Mhm.
about that character or that setting, or when I'm describing this thing? Ooh, what just happened in my stomach? And
Yeah.
just keep you can actually be a witness for yourself, because when you allow yourself to be that character, you can also hold the narrator point of view. And that's what was happening with all of my authors. They would be the character and then they would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I survived that. I'm like, what do you mean you survived the actual thing 20 years ago? Yeah, but I didn't know if I could survive writing that scene. Interesting, right? Because it was still stuck in here. So they survive the character, and then they come up and they're looking at what happened between that scene and the next one. That's a narrator point of view. And that gives the opportunity to see all the other information that a narrator can see that a character cannot. From inside the story, you can only see your own perspective, right? Which is why your writing coach probably said, don't keep jumping ahead in the timeline. Don't say what I knew at the time was. What I didn't know at the time was. Be in the time, be the character. Don't pop back and forth. And so you get this opportunity to start practicing these two different levels of awareness. And it's really powerful because I think a good portion of us are living lives as characters that feel like we are just being run by storyline. We are at the whim of whoever that is writing this freaking story that we can't seem to get a grip on,
Yeah.
or we're operating as narrators. Often those are those of us who've been in the world of self-development and healing for a long time. We can tell you all about our wound map. This happened and it turned into this, and this happened and it turned into that. But we're missing the character feeling. We're like
Mhm.
we're not living in our stories. And so when you get both of those together, then you start finding yourselves in these moments where you're like, oh, I can feel this. And I also know exactly what's happening, this pattern. I totally get it. And that's when you have power to change a story, because the character is the only one that can do that. They're the only ones that can change the trajectory of the story.
Absolutely. Wow. I really appreciate your perspective on that, and just the um as you were sharing, I was thinking back on my journaling and reflections before I wrote the book and after, and you're absolutely correct. It has shifted.
Yeah.
My journaling has changed completely. My writing has changed completely. Yeah, so it's very interesting to look at it from that point of view. Now, I'm curious, would you say that it might be easier to try that in a writing group first? Like when you've never done this type of reflection before, would it be better to do it that way, or like I just immediately go to I'd probably do better in a group than doing trying to do this on my own.
That might actually be a personal, like, personality preference, right? Because
Hmm.
some of us need other humans to stay regulated,
Hmm.
and other people need to be by themselves and not dysregulated by other humans all the time. So I would
Yeah.
just say tune into what you need. And if you need someone, then yeah, ask a friend to go to a coffee shop with you. I don't recommend doing this type of writing at home, especially if you're digging into hard stuff in your past, because usually it's almost like You start to see timelines blending, timelines and stories. I had one client very early on. She was writing a story about an abusive relationship, and she was super excited to bring this story to the world, and we'd figured out a really powerful way to do it. And she had found an angel of a man and married him. And as she was writing this project, he started to change. Like his behaviors would be just completely odd. And it was only when he was in the house. And I said, "Where are you doing the writing?" And she said, "At the kitchen table." I'm like, no, 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 no. Because it's like being back in that energy. Imagine you let yourself go back there, right? Now, if you don't have a ritual for cleaning up the energy in the space and off of you, then it's like bringing that old part of you forward without that healthy decision about this is now my storyline. Like it's different now. I'm bringing that person into a more beautiful storyline. That person can come and take over the storyline. And so, yeah, I recommend friend or alone, do it outside or in a coffee shop in public, and then have some sort of ritual for coming back into your current timeline.
Thank you. That was gold right there. Yeah, I did not know that. I did know about rituals, but I did do most of my writing in my home space,
Mm,
albeit it wasn't my current home.
yeah.
We've moved since, but still, yeah, that's a really important piece of information right
Did
there.
it
So,
change? Did you notice some chaos or something happen on the days when you were writing?
oh, if I think about it hard enough, I'm sure I can think of weird events and things that have happened along the way. And I think it's like you said, for a multitude of reasons, and depending on which part I was writing as well,
Hmm.
you know. Wow. That was great. Thank you, Amanda. So let's wrap this up. Let's break this down for the Wild and Wise takeaways. One is writing isn't just self-expression, it's self-discovery.
Yes.
Another point Amanda made is storytelling connects us not only to others, but more importantly to ourselves. And stories we tell shape our reality. So let's make sure that we reflect who we truly are. Let's allow ourselves to go into those nooks and corners and crannies that we might want to hide away from others and just allow ourselves to see that space, test it out in a safe environment with someone you feel safe with before you blast it out on social media. That's
Yes,
that's
please. Yes, please. Or
uh,
on stage. I've seen people do it on stage. This is the first time I'm telling my story, and I just feel myself go, "Oh no." I'm gonna say a prayer for
wow.
them because
Yeah. 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 That's yeah. Wow. Whew. So, Amanda, if someone's listening feels called to start this journey, what's the simplest way they can begin?
I would say go over to savedbystory.house/foreshadows. And actually, there is an exercise that would be perfect for this called, I think it's the Save Your Story exercise or Stop the Story Loop. And there's a little exercise that you can get started on and see what happens. And then I hope you'll respond back to the email and let me know what happens for you while you're in that exercise.
Amazing. Thank you. I will also put that link into the show notes for easy access. Amanda, this has been such a rich and moving conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on how we can use writing to heal and reconnect with ourselves, something that is very near and dear to my heart. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you want to dive in deeper with Amanda, I'll share all of her web links in the show notes for you. If you want to go deeper in the conversation and explore how storytelling can be a powerful tool in your own life, join me in the Wild and Wise Collective, where Amanda will actually share a couple of more Q&As with us in that membership exclusively. You'll also have the support there from the community and other women navigating these journeys together. So links in the show notes. find us there and connect with us. Thank you so much, Amanda. And I
You.
hope to have you back on the show. And maybe we can talk more about how we can deepen this
I would love
conversation.
that. I would love that.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Wow, you are one powerful oracle.
I'm
Do you
glad.
so do you give cookies to your clients when they
we
first
we
come
deal
to
in
you?
dark
And
chocolate over here.
okay, dark chocolate
We call
works.
them feelings corners, and we
Yeah.
have them. They grow with every retreat. People are like, "Oh, I want to bring this to the feelings corner this time." Yeah.
I don't know if you knew this, but there's something about the dark chocolate piece
Mhm.
that if you use cacao as part of your retreats, I would imagine that the heart opening happens way more intensely. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
I
you?
even use sometimes I'll use medicine grade like from
Hmm.
South America,
Yeah.
depending on the group.
Yeah. So powerful and such a great tool because um, I found there were parts where it was really hard to open that piece up again and to just dig in um, and to allow it to come just naturally and organically. And I would
Yeah.
imagine that that's probably where most writing blocks happen. Is when you when you're hitting up to a story you don't want to really go back
Yeah.
to.
And
Uh,
I talked to a therapist once who told me that something about chocolate. I wish I could remember the part of the brain, but he said that chocolate really does keep the dementors away, like Harry Potter, because um it touches the part of the brain that needs touch, like intimacy, connection, and touch. And so you can imagine, right, that the heart opening and then also that sense of
Soothing.
safety and
Yeah.
nurture and soothing. I was
Yeah.
like that. I need to contact him and ask him for the research because I just thought, I mean, that's why I've been addicted my entire life and shared it with everyone I know.
Yeah, exactly. Bring on the dark chocolate. Which
Hmm.
one's your favorite? Is it dark chocolate almonds like mine?
With a little salt is even better.
Right? So
Mhm.
good. All right, here's the exclusive questions for the
Okay.
Wild Women Collective, Amanda. I struggle with self-censorship when I write. I worry about what others would think if they read my words. How do you move past that?
Give yourself permission for a shitty rough draft. Um, I think part of it is understanding that usually we've been called to write for ourselves first. And so I always, especially even fiction, if it's rooted in something that happened in real life. My little sister wrote a book about losing our dad and how it just devastated her. And I told her, I know you want to write it and fictionalize it, but you need to write this true for you first and just give yourself permission to get it all out on paper and always write past the editing voice, meaning you can only be hypercritical of your writing for so long. If
Hmm.
you just keep writing, especially with your hand, you will get to the place where your body is just dumping information out. Your
Hmm.
soul is just speaking to you instead of, that part of your brain saying, I don't know what people are going to think about this.
Right. Getting past the censorship. Yeah. Oh, powerful. How can you, how can writing help me work through regrets from earlier in life and find peace with the past?
Hmm. It's regrets. I had a very strange experience where my grandma, who I had left about a year before she passed, we were her caregivers, and it got very, very hard and toxic. And it was nearing abuse because of the dementia with my son. So we had to get out. And I felt awful. And it was hard to connect with her because of the dementia and her hearing. And so I had a friend who was taking care of her at the time. And so I'd hear updates. And about the time that she was getting ready to pass, I felt like she was like her soul was talking to me while I was sleeping, and I had dreams and sometimes nightmares, and they reminded me of stories that she told me about her childhood and about these sorts of things, and they wouldn't stop. And, I kept hearing she's almost gone, but she's holding on and we don't know why. And I thought, maybe I should just write these things down. And
Hmm.
so I started to write for her. And it was all just horrible, horrible crap. I mean, her dad tried to kill her
Mm.
when she was 3. Her mom died early, like poverty, horrible things.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at this one day and I heard this voice say, maybe just like your authors, maybe her soul needs to see the other part of the story. That there was there was all of this tragedy, but then there were these remarkable humans who showed up in her life to rescue her. There was the
Hmm.
guy who opened up the door and let her in before her dad got to her. That was an angel. And then there was her husband who showed up and got her out of that environment. And
Hmm.
so what I started to do was write the bigger picture. And as soon as I finished writing it and I shared it with my sister, I got the phone call that she'd gone. Now, I don't know how woo you are, but that was just one of those things where I thought, that was even for someone else's life of regrets. Like, I feel like she was holding on because all she could
Hmm.
see was the horrible stuff. That's what she was feeding me over and over and over. But because I'd been with her for so long and heard everyone else's stories about her life, I was
Hmm.
able to say, no, grandma, look,
Hmm.
it's a whole story. And it's not just regret. It's actually, there was a lot of grace and you did better than the ones who came before you.
Wow. There's a huge gift in that. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And and what I heard was is that the biggest regret was is that she didn't get the opportunity to see the other side of it on her own terms. So um, she was lucky to have you to do that for her. And for those of you who are listening and can resonate with this question, just start writing and let the story take
Mhm.
care of it for you. You'll see the bigger picture once you write it down. I promise you, I can 100% validate everything Amanda has said because that's what happened for me as well. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and you can let other people in your story off the hook too. I had a
Yeah.
narrative healing experience, what'll be 2 years ago now,
Hmm.
where I was writing a scene for an author because it was one of these make or break scenes, and he was like, "Please add your Amanda magic. I can't do this by myself." And so I was
Hmm.
in this scene, and I was transported to a scene when I was 7 with a character in my life who I believed acted malevolently in that moment. And because of the scene that I was in and how I was writing it, this was fiction.
Hmm.
But because of how deep in the story I was and how connected viscerally I was to all the characters, I got that connected to all the characters in my 7-year-old story. And I had just a question open of, this actually, maybe this was the best choice that this person had in that moment. Maybe he wasn't trying to hurt me. Maybe he was trying to save me from his bad decisions.
Hmm.
And I could let him off the hook after 35 years of, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, he certainly affected my story,
Hmm.
but understanding that there were other things at play and seeing that just by virtue of being inside of a story and connecting with feelings and motivations and micro expressions on everyone's face. I mean, it was completely changed my whole life seeing that
Yeah.
scene differently.
Yeah. Again, something I can very much relate to. Less dramatic, perhaps, but there's a scene in my book where I talk about my mom packing up our house. And I remember when I was writing this particular scene, something happened for me that I had never seen before. Like been, I've never seen her perspective on this or how she was maybe seeing the world at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And and it shifted a lot for me in terms of healing that part of the story from how I was removed from
Mhm.
Germany and transported over here to Canada. So, yeah.
It takes that, you know, that cliche that we all say, they were doing the best that they could with what they had. And
Mm-hmm,
we can really believe that up here.
mm-hmm,
But when you write, you actually get the opportunity to experience that truth.
yeah,
And it's that disconfirming experience. It's not just a head knowledge. It's a deep knowing that there
yeah,
was more going on than your little character could see at the time.
at the
And
time.
maybe there's just more to the story.
Mm-hmm, yeah, yeah. Wow. You are truly an oracle of storytelling, and I'm so grateful that you've reached out and that we've met, and that you were here on this show sharing that information, and just sharing how powerful story is and writing it down, how much it can do for us. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, Amanda, for being here. And
Pleasure.
um, I look forward to staying connected and following your journey, and also hopefully having you back on the show to talk more about how we can make this happen for more people. Because writing a book perhaps is daunting, but it was really helpful to hear you say that it's not always just about writing a whole book. You can just start writing,
Yeah,
reflective writing,
yeah,
and let that be it. It doesn't have to be a book. Thank you.
absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you.
Hmm.